From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, September the 27th, 2017. 3 Israelis were murdered in a terror attack yesterday just outside Jerusalem. The attack took place yesterday morning in the West Bank Jewish settlement of Har Adar, where 37-year-old Palestinian Nimr Mahmoud Ahmad Jamal, one of a group of Palestinian day laborers who work in the settlement, approached its entrance. IDF officers said they asked Jamal to stop because he aroused their suspicion. The terrorist then took a pistol out of his shirt and began shooting at the officers, killing 20-year-old border policeman Solomon Gavria and civilian security guards 25-year-old Yusuf Atman, who was an Arab Israeli and had served in the IDF, and 25-year-old Or Arish. Funerals were held for the 3 yesterday evening. Another security guard was seriously injured but is expected to recover. Jamal was shot and killed by security forces at the scene of the attack. He had reportedly worked in Har Adar for over 2 years. Terror group Hamas praised the deadly attack, which was celebrated in Gaza. Condemnation was heard from UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Nikolai Mladenov, who said it is deplorable that Hamas and others continue to glorify such attacks, which undermine the possibility of a peaceful future for both Palestinians and Israelis. And the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv and the U.S. Consulate in Jerusalem issued a joint statement calling the attack horrific, saying we also condemn statements glorifying terrorism and call on all to send a clear message that terrorism must never be tolerated. Overnight last night, the IDF mapped out the terrorist's home for demolition and also confiscated work permits of several of his family members. Well, despite efforts from Israel and the U.S. to prevent it, the Palestinian bid to join Interpol passed yesterday. The world's largest international police organization accepted the, quote, State of Palestine as a full member at its annual General Assembly in Beijing, with 75 countries voting yes, 24 voting no, and 34 abstaining. Israel had expressed concerns that the PA's membership in Interpol could risk sensitive information being leaked to Palestinian terror groups. And both Israel and the U.S. see such unilateral moves to have international bodies recognize Palestinian statehood as an impediment to efforts to restart the peace process. Veteran Rabbi Joshua Haberman has died. Haberman was Rabbi Emeritus of the Washington Hebrew Congregation and founder of the Foundation for Jewish Studies. He was a professor, author, and worked to promote interfaith dialogue. Haberman also represented the Jewish community during the memorial service for the victims of 9/11 held at the National Cathedral in Washington. Haberman's rabbinic career spanned over 7 decades. He died Sunday at the age of 98. A neo-Nazi march that was set to pass close to a synagogue in Sweden on Yom Kippur has been rerouted. The Gothenburg Administrative Court ruled on Monday that the march, set for September the 30th by the far-right Nordic resistance movement, will follow a different route, avoiding Sweden's main synagogue. The court cited the safety and security of the Jewish community and concerns that Jews could be intimidated from attending services. The Jewish community in Sweden and Jewish organizations here in the U.S. had expressed outrage when the march was initially announced, including the Anti-Defamation League and the World Jewish Congress, whose president Ronald Lauder met with the Swedish Prime Minister about the march in New York last week. The WJC welcomed this week's ruling and said, "We hope that this will serve as an important precedent, both in Sweden and in other countries, to prevent any such event from taking place in the future." And taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, September the 27th at 7 o'clock, Israeli diplomat Dani Ayalon and NYU law professor Thane Rosenbaum discussed the truth about Israel. At 8, former Knesset member and Shalom Hartman Institute fellow Ruth Calderon speaks with the Institute's Alan Abbey on the complexities of Israel as both a democratic and Jewish state. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Rabbi Shlomo Riskin on L'chaim, and at 10, Israeli Knesset member Meirav Michaeli talks about social justice in Israel. And coming up right after this newscast tonight at 6:30, it's Thinking Out Loud with Micah Halpern. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, September the 27th, 2017. I'm Teisha Bader.